Hello everyone. In this video, I want to perform a moderated mediation analysis. And then I have this topic, the effect of work placement learning on school-to-work transition, and I called it a moderated mediation model. So I'm going to be conducting this analysis using the Andrew Hayes ProcessMacro model 7 in SPSS. And so if you look at the model that I have, you will see that I have already presented to you the variables in this study, the effect of work placement learning on school-to-work transition. So that already explains that work placement learning is the independent variable on school-to-work transition, meaning that our focus here is school-to-work transition. That is our variable y, which is the dependent variable. So what it means is that our worry in this study is that we want to know how undertaking work placement learning would influence increase in school-to-work transition. And then again, we have a mediator variable here. Why is it a moderated mediation model? It is a moderated mediation model because I have a mediator variable here, and then I have a moderator variable W. What it's saying is that work placement learning would significantly influence school-to-work transition. So this is basically our baseline hypothesis. This is the first argument that we want to make. And then again, we are also trying to say that we want to see the possibility that undertaking work placement learning would significantly influence the student's level of self-efficacy. That is this part. Again, we also want to propose in our study that higher level of self-efficacy, which is the variable M, would likely increase school-to-work transition. And then lastly, that parental support, which is the moderator variable W, would interact with work placement learning to increase the student's level of self-efficacy, and then leading to an increase in school-to-work transition. Looking at this conceptual model, if you have been following my previous videos, you will understand that I have always advocated for having a conceptual model, because the conceptual models will guide you to know how to pose your hypothesis. And let me explain this. If you are a graduate student, you might need to write your objectives, you write the research questions, and at the same time write your hypothesis. But if you are an early career researcher or a researcher wanting to develop a manuscript for journal publication, it is not mandatory that you must pose research questions and at the same time hypotheses in one study. You simply mention your objectives and then go ahead to pose your hypothesis, just like I'm going to demonstrate it right now. So the objective of the current study is to examine the effect of work placement learning on school-to-work transition, the mediating effect of self-efficacy, and the moderating effect of parental support. Thus, my hypothesis would read as follows. H1 And of course, I am posing positive hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis, not the null hypothesis, because this is a relationship research that I am conducting. So my hypothesis will read as follows. 1, you must have to establish the baseline hypothesis. So this is automatically our regression lines and our hypothesis number 1. So that's going to be that work placement learning would positively influence students' school to work transition. Hypothesis 2 would be that work placement learning variable X would significantly or positively increase the students' level of self-efficacy. Work placement learning would positively influence students' level of self-efficacy. Hypothesis 3 would read that the mediator variable would significantly influence the dependent variable. Why? So self-efficacy, students' higher level of self-efficacy would positively influence their increase in school to work transition. Hypothesis number 4 would be that self-efficacy will mediate the relationship. I will pose that self-efficacy would significantly mediate the effect of work placement learning on students' school to work transition. And I'll pose hypothesis number 5, which is the moderator hypothesis. Here, the moderator variable, that the moderator variable will interact with the independent variable to increase the student's level of self-efficacy. So I will say that parental support would moderate the effect of work placement learning on students' school to work transition. And then hypothesis 6 is that I will pose the moderated mediation model hypothesis. I will say that the interaction of parental support and work placement learning on self-efficacy will be stronger when the level of parental support is higher than when it's low. So this particular one is the moderated mediation hypothesis. So this is going to moderate the indirect effect of work placement learning on school-to-work transition mediated by self-efficacy. We are going to demonstrate this in SPSS and then go ahead to write out the results of the analysis. So I encourage you to sit, relax, and watch the tutorial to the end so that you will be able to learn how you can run a moderated mediation model. It must not be in the education context. It could be in the health related, engineering, social sciences related field. So let's head to SPSS. And in SPSS, I have a data set that already I have already coded. So if you look at here, you will see that I've got placement learning, parental support, efficacy, and school-to-work transition. If you've been following my previous videos, you will know how to code your data into SPSS. So you may check out my previous videos on how to code your data set into your Likert scale data into the SPSS, and then how to also group your Likert scale questionnaire and turn them into continuous variables. So I will drop the video down the video description box below, so you can click on them to also watch them to come to this level. The first thing I need to do is that let us assume that I've already checked the Cronbach's alpha reliability coefficient for the variables, and then I've already established that their reliability is good. The next thing I will need to do is to go to analyze. I'll go to regression. I'll go to ProcessMacro by Andrew Hayes. If you don't have this plugin, I will also drop the video down the video description box, so that can also guide you on how to download the Process plugin and install it into your SPSS. In a separate video, I will also demonstrate to you other ProcessMacro models that we can also take. If you look at this document by Andrew Hayes, Introduction to Mediation, Moderation, and Conditional Process Analysis, a regression-based approach by Professor Andrew Hayes, you will see that we've got series of models. We've got several models, like we have model 1. So this is like a multiple linear regression analysis, because here you have one dependent variable, and then you've got one independent variable, and then one moderator variable. So if you watch my last video on regression with a moderator variable, it's just a typical example of this model 1. So we've got model 2, but today the analysis is about model 7. So let me take you to model 7 and show you exactly what we want to do. So this is model 7. Following Andrew Hayes' process analysis, you can see that he has one independent variable, one dependent variable, one mediator, and one W moderator variable. And this is exactly what we've got here. So I've got one independent, one mediator, one dependent, one moderator variable. To run the analysis, we head to SPSS, back to this, and then one thing you need to keep an eye on is the variables that you want to measure. Make sure that when you want to run your analysis, that the variable name is not more than 8 characters. Okay, so in this case, transition, for example, is more than 8 characters. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is not. If you have a variable named more than 8 characters, you will have to check here and then accept the risk of incorrect output. So because we don't want to run into this risk, so ensure that you name your variables, keep the names short. So parental 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Placement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we may have to put this as placement. Then efficacy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is efficacy is more than that. So that is 2, 4, 6, 7, so we need to keep that lesser. Outcome is less than 8 character. Yeah, so I think we are good to go at this point. So the first is to move the dependent variable y into the dependent variable box, and then the placement, which is our x variable, independent variable, will move it into the x variable box, and then the parental, which is our moderator variable w, move it down to the w, and then the efficacy, which is our mediator variable, will put it into the mediator variable box. Now, assuming we want to have some control variables, we can move them into the covariates here. Then we will select model 7. The next thing is to instruct the process macro the kind of analysis that we want. Because this is a moderated mediation analysis, we want to see visualization for interaction. So I'm going to select this. So I want to see my analysis in 3 decimal places so that it will not produce too long outputs. And then I want to prove my interaction when it is less than 0.05, and then I like to see the conditioning values at -1 standard deviation, the mean, and +1 standard deviation. So this is like saying low, average, and high levels of the moderator. Okay, so we want to see the interaction. What is it like? If parental support is low, that is -1 standard deviation. When it's average, if the parent gives you average level of support, and then when the parent provides high level of support, we would like to see how it will interact with work placement learning to increase students' level of self-efficacy towards engaging in their school-to-work transition process. Okay, so we click continue, and then we run the analysis. Click OK for the analysis to produce the result for us. Here is the output of the analysis, and so here it begins with the model, specifying the model that was produced. So here is model 7, and then it gives you the variables that are in the model correctly to be sure this is exactly what you did. So you can see our y, which is our dependent variable. Let me take you back here. Dependent variable, that is school to work transition. And then you see our x placement, m efficacy, and w parental. Now we have the sample size of 209 respondents. So the first part is that, remember that our model is that the first part is that it will first check, compute for the part 1, which is self-efficacy. And so that is why in the output here we have the outcome variable, because when we have variables like this, remember the mediator is also an outcome variable, can also serve as an outcome variable and at the same time a predictor variable, because in this case work placement learning is going to predict an outcome in the self-efficacy, and also the self-efficacy is also going to predict an outcome in school to work transition. If you look at hypothesis number 3, you will notice that self-efficacy will act as a predictor in this case by influencing school to work transition. So in this case, it's acting as a predictor. But here in the hypothesis number 2, you will see that work placement learning will be predicting self-efficacy. So in this case, self-efficacy will be acting as an outcome variable. So that is why here the process macro will first give you the mediator as the first outcome variable. So here we have a very pretty model summary. So I've got a statistically significant model summary. And then you can see that our R-squared value is 0.267, which is like saying that the analysis predicted 26.7% variance in the outcome variable, in this case, students' learning self-efficacy. And then the F statistics result is 24.869, which is quite high. Then, but let us look at the analysis itself. In the model here, we can see that our focus is on the interaction effect, because we notice that placement learning self-efficacy here appeared to have a reduction effect. It's saying that the more students engage in work placement learning alone, this is what this result is talking about, that the more people engage in work placement learning alone, the less likely their level of self-efficacy will increase. So in this case, engaging in work placement learning alone may likely decrease the students' learning self-efficacy. Again, parental support also had a negative but statistically significant moderating effect. However, the interaction part is our focus here, because you can see that the effect, the coefficient, that the interaction is positive and is statistically significant, indicating that when parental support mixes placement learning, it will increase the students' learning self-efficacy towards engaging in school-to-work transition. So this is like saying that engaging in work placement learning plus students receiving higher level of support from their parents will significantly influence their self-efficacy. Again, one place we also want to look at is the higher order, the test for higher order unconditional interaction. So you can see that here we have a statistically significant result, interaction result, and the test of independent variable by the moderator is statistically significant, and the R-squared change is also positive, indicating that the interaction analysis significantly contributed to additional 19.4% variance in the interaction analysis. Now, this is the conditional effect. This is the conditional effect analysis that the result has provided to us. So in this case, you can see that when the parental support is low, because this is low, this is average level of parental support, and this is high level of parental support. So when the parental support is less, we have the effect size to 0.054, and this is not statistically significant, so you can see the p-value is above 0.05. But you can see that when the parental support is on the average level, we have 0.332 effect size, which is quite a moderate effect size, and is statistically significant. Again, when the parental support is high, we have a higher level of a higher increasing effect on the students' self-efficacy, leading to school-to-work transition. This is what this is saying. Again, one more way to confirm the statistically significant results that we've got is by looking at the confidence interval, the lower bound and then the upper bound. So you can see that here we've got, here 0 did not fall between the null, okay? So this is confirming the analysis that we've got. Again, this is the plot that the ProcessMacro will provide for you. So when we copy this and run it, it's going to give us the plots. So I encourage you to watch the tutorial to the end so you'll be able to learn how to do this. So at this point, if you've watched this video at this point and you've not liked the video, I encourage you to hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, so when the next video drops, you'll be able to have the notice, you get the notification that I've posted a new video, and then subscribe to this channel and then share the video so that others can learn from this tutorial. Again, if you are a graduate student or early career researcher and you need support in your in data analysis, You can contact me by sending an email. My email is already at the beginning of this video. You can see my email, so you can send an email for consultations. I will do well to support you. The next one is another outcome variable, which is the transition, the school to work transition. So at this point, this is the part that the SPSS output want to show us, the ProcessMacro analysis want to show us, the part from here to here, which is the baseline hypothesis that we posed. That is hypothesis number 1. So in the output, so you will see that the placement learning has a significant influence on the transition. And then again, it also has the effect on self-efficacy, also has a positive influence on school to work transition. So you can see that the significant values are positive. This is the direct effect of X on Y, which is like what Andrew Hayes calls the C prime. So this is the part, like I explained before now. And if you look at the output, you will see is 0.293. This is exactly the same result that we've got here, 0.293. That is the baseline hypothesis that you must establish before any other analysis can go on. The next part is the indirect effect. Okay, so this is the conditional indirect effect. That is the moderated indirect effect. Okay, it gives us the fact that parental support at low level of parental support, the indirect effect, the conditional indirect effect, is not statistically significant. For the indirect effect, you won't see the value of P and you won't see the value of T. So what you will see here is the bootstrap confidence interval. Okay, so and if you look at the lower and the upper bound, you will see that 0 falls between the null, so making it not statistically significant. So it means that even at the low level of the interaction of parental support, so when parental support is less, it is not statistically significant. We do not have evidence that it will increase student self-efficacy leading to transition. But at the middle, at the average, which is at the mean, we have a positive effect of 0.132, and this is statistically significant because 0 did not fall between the null. Like you can see here, this is positive and this is positive. But you can see the one that is not statistically significant, this is negative and this is positive. So meaning that 0 falls between the null. It means that you have to first count all the negative, count 0 before you begin to count the plus that we have here. And again, at the high level of parental support, the interaction, the conditional indirect effect is 0.243, and this is statistically significant also. Now, one way to know whether the interaction effect is statistically significant is that the index of the moderated mediation analysis must be statistically significant. So if the index of the moderated mediation analysis is not statistically significant, it means that there is no moderation effect. It means that this particular analysis will not be statistically significant because this is the focus of this study. Now, you can see that the index of moderated mediation, so this is like what Andrew Hayes calls the omnibus test of the moderated mediation analysis. So you can see that it's 0.082 and is statistically significant because both the upper bound and lower bound of 5,000 confidence interval, 95% confidence interval are both positive. So here is the level of statistically significant, the level of confidence interval. So here is the level of confidence interval for all confidence intervals in output, that is 95%. And number of bootstrap samples is 5,000. So this is like saying whatever the sample is, it is being, the analysis sees it as 5,000 so that it be able to generalize the findings that you have to a larger population. And so this is the W, the value of the W, which is the moderator. So we have -1 standard deviation, the mean, and then +1 standard deviation.